Welcome to Broadway Drumming 101. My guest today is Jared Schonig, an amazing drummer. He has a new album out called Two Sides?
Two takes.
Two Takes. Sorry, man.
It's all good. That
Yeah.
two sides was also in consideration.
Yeah, I was just checking out some of the songs and the song Sabotage, man. That is funky, man. That's
Thank
some
you.
good stuff, man.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate it.
I'm going to find out more about this album and other things that you've done, but you are the drummer on Moulin Rouge. Tell me how
Correct.
you got that gig.
Great question. Actually, man, I want to say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I got a call from Justin Levine, who is the music supervisor, co-orchestrator, arranger, incidental music composer, basically the brainchild of music in Moulin Rouge. And he called me and he said, "Hey, this is a long way away, but we're gonna get together. I want you to get together and help us like do some arrangements and flesh out some stuff for this show." And I said, sure. And I wasn't quite sure how I was referred to him. I think I figured it out, and that was through Carmel Dean, who is an incredible music director and composer. But basically, yeah, I got brought on to work on Moulin Rouge from the very, very beginning. It was me and Charlie Rosen and a couple different bass players and guitar players who were basically, doing these musical labs and figuring out, parts and just arrangement ideas. Like I was very integral in figuring out, arrangement ideas and drum grooves that became, the song and stuff like that. So it was a very cool process. It's basically the first show in which I was really involved from the very, very beginning.
Did you get to choose some of the songs?
I did not choose the songs. That's all Justin.
Hmm.
But definitely like groove ideas and arrangement ideas. I can very much say, I was a big part of, which is cool. So, and
You
also Jeff Tansky is another guy who was there from the very beginning, who is the associate music director on the show.
hmm.
Yeah.
When you are originating a show like that, uh, as far as writing the drum grooves, are you coming up with all of that, and do you get an orchestrating credit for that?
So on this show, this is the first show I actually did get credit and a piece of the orchestrating pile, which is great. I think and most drummers know that we are usually writing our own parts and not getting credit. And I think that it's a really sad part of our business. But I think there's kind of a new regime of people who are willing to fight for the musicians who are part of the process. And Justin Levine is definitely one of the amazing guys who did that. And he said, these guys were just as important to this orchestrating process as these other people, and let's we'll split the pot up. And it was really sweet. But yeah, we all know how much work we do as drummers for shows and don't get the credit. And hopefully that's changing.
Yeah, for those that don't know, that are just new to this whole thing, when you start a show, you are usually working with a pianist who's usually the music director. And you and that person are in the rehearsal room with the director and sometimes the choreographer and the person who's writing the music or people who are writing the music, and they just give you a piano vocal,
Yeah.
and you basically come up with the drum part for the show that usually translates into what you play if you get to the point where you're on Broadway.
Right.
Usually that's the orchestrating, the the orchestration of the drum part, and you should be getting a payment for that. But it's
Correct.
changing, which is something that I think Rich Mercurio did with Waitress.
Yeah, that was like a neat situation where the whole band actually got, co-orchestrating credit.
Wow.
So where it says orchestrated by the Waitress Band. Doesn't have anybody's name there. So it just says the Waitress Band or Sarah Bareilles and the Waitress Band, which is great. And, they all split it evenly, which was really, really sweet. Yeah, but generally that doesn't happen.
Thank you. You and Rich are trailblazers here. I think.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. The other people have done it. Yeah, but it's cool.
See if we can follow in your footsteps. But you went to Eastman School of Music.
I did.
Hey, did you grow up in Rochester?
I did not. I'm born and raised from in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
part? Inglewood, Long Beach?
No, neither. Northridge,
Where's
which is
that?
where Northridge is in the San Fernando Valley. I'm not sure if kids are going to watch this, but it is the porn capital of the world. San
Really?
Fernando Valley. Correct.
Wow.
And yeah, I there was also a big earthquake there in '94, which was huge, like pretty devastating in Southern California. 6.8, lots of crazy stuff happened on Martin Luther King Day in '94.
What were you doing at that point?
I was 5:30 in the morning. I was sleeping in a bunk bed, not not unlike the one I just saw a few minutes ago. And yeah, it was pretty scary. And yeah, but everybody in my family was fine, luckily.
I spent some time in California working on shows, and I thought I wanted to live there, but I changed my mind in 2020. But I always wondered what's it like actually living through an earthquake. And I spoke to some people in San Francisco, and they were saying that there's sometimes the sidewalk, like it's like you can see the waves of the road, and that's crazy.
It is crazy.
I mean,
I never saw that. Yeah, go ahead.
so is it just like, obviously you feel like you're totally out of control, and obviously you can't do anything about it.
It's funny. Growing up there, it actually, once you've been through a couple, they all feel the same, except for the big one, which was that one in '94. There's like an earthquake every 6 months, like a 3.0, 4.0. Oh, there's tons. And some people really, really hate them. And I guess I just got used to them, except for the big one, which was very, very scary. Because it was like a 30, maybe 45 seconds of the most intense shaking you've ever felt. I could have been thrown out of the bunk bed, or my brother was sleeping on top. I can't remember. But yeah, it's scary. And all the earthquakes tend to happen in the morning, like early morning. So you're usually sleeping and you don't really see the sidewalk shake. But there were definitely aftershocks like later in the day that were pretty big, like 5s, 5.5s. And you could definitely kind of see the earth moving. Yeah, I don't recommend it. It's pretty frightening.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow. So you grew up in the porn capital. When did you realize it was the porn capital? When you were in high school?
Definitely, yes.
But you were playing drums all that time, so you didn't want to go into that industry because you wanted to do something wholesome.
Correct.
So you started playing drums at what age?
I started playing drums in high school. I had been playing classical piano early on. So a little bit of background is both my parents are professional musicians. My dad is a very well-regarded, respected studio percussionist and drummer. And my mom is a classical pianist, wonderful teacher and classical pianist. So they kind of started me out on piano early on, like around 4 or 5. And I played serious classical piano for about 10 years. And then I played a little bit of oboe in middle school. And then I switched to the drums in high school. I had always gone into my dad's studio and kind of tinkered around and played and came up with grooves and played along to Led Zeppelin records and Nirvana records. But I didn't start taking lessons or become serious until high school.
Why oboe?
Great question. I was in middle school band or orchestra, and they said, "What do you want to play?" And I said, "Well, I play piano." And they said, "Well, you can't play piano in orchestra." I said, "Well, like, what are the hardest instruments?" And they said, "French horn, oboe." And I said, "I don't know. I'll try oboe. Looks like a clarinet. Can't be that hard." So that's how I chose it.
Wow. When was the last time you played the oboe?
At the last night of War Paint, a fantastic musical I did where there was an oboe chair, and I surprised everyone by playing giant steps on the oboe. It's a true story. You can
Wow, that's
you can
funny.
ask a few people who remember it.
Do you pick up your oboe from time to time and
I mean, I don't have one, but I can. And the embouchure is the hardest part. Just like feeling like your brain is exploding playing a double reed. But you remember all the fingerings and everything, and it's fun. It's cool.
so you started playing in high school? Did
Yeah,
your did you start taking lessons at that point?
yeah,
And
yeah.
did you did your parents buy you a drum set or did you get one on your own? Or
No, I was just playing on my dad's stuff. I never had my own stuff. I was just my dad had a pretty amazing studio when you think about it. We moved houses when I was in eighth grade, close to the middle school I was going to, and there was basically like a detached office in the back of this house. Sounds fancy, but it's not. Um, and my dad in that office had timpani, marimba, um, vibes, a hammered dulcimer, all set up in this big room. And then there was a little room which was, I guess, the bathroom before, but there was no bathroom stuff in it. And he put the drums in there, so we like had a little ISO booth for the drums, which was pretty awesome. So my dad practiced in there, and then I started practicing in there. And then we would play duets and do snare drum reading together in this big room, and it was pretty awesome.
so other than your father, were there other drummers that you looked up to back then?
Yeah. So I mean, my initial two favorite drummers were John Bonham and Dave Grohl, actually, basically my two favorite bands, and Mitch Mitchell of Jimi Hendrix Experience. Those were my favorites, but kind of locally. So my high school experience is pretty formative. Also, my parents switched my high schools when I was a sophomore, and they basically tricked me into going to an arts magnet, where a lot of wonderful, famous musicians went, but it was really far from my house. So when I was started at the school, there was basically like four or five really, really incredible drummers there who I really, really looked up to, whom most of all are still in the LA scene, very high level studio or jazz players. And then one of them in particular is a guy named Lyndon Rochelle, who was one of my dad's students in middle school, actually. And he ended up going to Hamilton, the high school I went to, and I was a year younger than him. And so I was looked up to him, and he was, he's a great guy, great player, and does really well in LA.
So you decided to go to Eastman School of Music. Why not USC or Juilliard or Berkeley?
Um, the short answer, it was the furthest away from my house. I ended up getting pretty much full rides to almost every school I auditioned to except for Eastman. But something about the audition process and the selectiveness about how small the jazz program was very intriguing to me. I also had like kind of a really good buddy of my dad's, Clay Jenkins, an incredible trumpet player, had just started teaching there, and I felt like a level of comfort from him. And I had also seen the Eastman Jazz Ensemble perform with the New York Voices, which is ironic because it's a group I ended up playing with a lot um, in my professional life. But I saw them play at IAJE one year in high school, and I just really loved them, and I loved the director's music, who his name is Fred Sturm, great composer and great guy, and his son is one of my best friends. So it's all these little kind of funny things that led me to choose Eastman, I think. But yeah, there was many other choices on the table, but I think as soon as I knew I got into Eastman, I kind of knew I wanted to go there, which I couldn't tell you why, except for that.
And you studied jazz performance.
Yeah.
Now, why jazz performance and not something else like classical percussion. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I when I left high school, all I wanted to do was play jazz. I had played lots of music and classical music and been in orchestras and, all city bands and all that stuff. But I really, actually, maybe that's not true, but I knew I just wanted to be a jazz major and wherever I went. I knew that classical percussion wasn't something that I wanted to spend 4 years doing. I had never thought about that. Like the only other option was going to Berkeley and doing like, commercial music degree or whatever.
When you finished Eastman, did you move back to the LA area?
No, I moved right to New York. I spent the summer in Rochester, gigging and working. And then I came to New York in September. And luckily there was a crew of musicians that had graduated at like basically a year before me, who were kind of waiting for me to get there. So I would have some gigs and some work. I had a day job for 2 years because I needed health insurance because I'm type 1 diabetic. And ended up getting a good teaching job, like basically a year after I moved here, that I did for a really long time until the commute was too horrific. But it was a great school. So yeah, I was very fortunate to I didn't necessarily make my living playing music when I got here, but I survived with a day job and with music. Yeah.
It's funny. I thought I was like the only one who worked day jobs. Now, what kind of day job did you do?
I mean, I sold computers for Apple Computer.
Really?
Yeah, and like I was really good at it. I sold a lot of shit. So that I kept getting promoted, and it was a very like I got promoted to basically a manager in a year, and so I was going on this weird trajectory of like that could have been my life. And then I thought about, I know you've probably been to an Apple store. There are the Genius Bar, guys fix computers. And I was like, I want to do that. And they said, sure, you can do that. So basically, and then all of this actually ties back to Broadway. I was going to go fly out to train to be a genius in Cupertino, California. And I got my first call to sub on a show. And I knew that I couldn't do both. So I told them the next day, sorry, I'm quitting.
Wow. What show
Yeah.
was that?
Grease.
Hmm.
Grease the musical.
What year was that?
2008. 2008.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yep.
I wasn't even thinking about Broadway at that point. Wow.
Really? What? Because did you
Well,
do? You
yeah.
did.
Actually, I mean, I was in an off Broadway show, Altar Boys, at
Oh,
that point.
right. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, you did Altar Boys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I take that back. I was kind of subbing around at that time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
uh, so you were subbing at Grease. Who was the drummer on that show?
The great John Clancy.
Ah, yes. Speaking of orchestrating,
Correct.
yeah, he's on a whole other level now. It's great.
Big dog.
So how did you meet John?
That is a very good story. I was playing a lot of jazz at the St. Peter's Church on Lexington and 53rd. Like I said, one of my best friends is a great bass player named Ike Sturm, and he was head of a jazz ministry there. And one day we were playing there, and this guitar player named Jim Hirschman was there. And funny story, Jim Hirschman and my dad were friends in Sacramento, California, where my dad grew up. They used to play together, but he didn't know it at the time. And Jim was looking for a drummer to play his like Monday night jazz gig in Queens. And I said, sure, why not? So I basically, I did this gig with Jim, who's a phenomenal jazz player, but unbeknownst to me was also a very high level Broadway musician. And kind of some time passed, and somehow it came up, hey, would you ever be interested in subbing a show? And I said, sure, I guess, like I don't know. Tell me about it. So he told me about it, and it sounded really great. And he said, you got to come in, you got to listen to the drummer play exactly like him, make sure that nobody knows that he's gone. And I said, this sounds like a fun challenge. I'll do it. So yeah, finally my time came where like Clancy needed another sub, and he called me, and I was pretty excited. And so I basically always say I can attribute my whole Broadway career to Jim Hershman.
Wow. There's always somebody that
Always.
connects
Yep.
you in. Mine was Matt
Yep.
Beck.
Oh, nice.
If it wasn't for Matt Beck, I wouldn't be doing this podcast right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Unemployed.
So two guitar players put us together.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's cool.
But you were on the fast track to becoming an Apple genius, and you're like, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to play on Broadway, or I'm going to go back into music.
Well, yeah, it's like I still had like a pretty decent little music career, playing jazz gigs at nighttime, teaching, playing some other gigs, like I nothing super high level, but things were getting a little hectic with I like to say I can't really remember my first 2 years in New York because I was just always working, whether it was gigging till like 3 a.m. or working 8-hour shifts. So I just knew like I couldn't do both, and something inside of me said I have to quit Apple, otherwise I'm going to get too far deep in and I'm going to end up not playing music. And that's not why I moved to New York. I didn't move to New York to play Broadway either, but it just happened. I'm sure you didn't either, and it just happened that way. So I'm very fortunate that it did. Something inside me, and maybe it was like a conversation with my parents or friends who were just like, yeah, just get out of there, like play music. So that's how it happened.
Man, it's so fascinating hearing your story. It's very similar to mine. Guitar player,
Yeah.
working a day job. I used to work at banks. I was
Yeah.
like, I started subbing. I was like, wait a minute. If I don't do this now, I quit my day job in 1998. It's like I grew my hair out. I had dreadlocks. If I don't do this now, it's now or never. I got married. I had 2 kids, just like yourself.
Yep.
But you have a much better marriage and cooler kids, and
no. Thank you. Your kids are pretty cool.
The fatherhood thing is great, and it's a very rewarding thing. But so is playing drums, and so is playing on Broadway. So which brings me to you sub for Clancy, which a lot of people call him.
Yes.
What did you do to prepare for subbing for him at Grease?
Yeah, so a few different people had told me the same thing. Like when you go into sub, you need to sound exactly like the guy, like, or the girl, or whoever is playing the chair. One very difficult thing about that show is Clancy hits the drums very hard. He's probably the hardest hitter I've ever seen or experienced. And the thing that made me the most nervous about subbing on that show was playing as loud as him, because everybody said you gotta play exactly like him, as loud as him. And so I would always come down after that show and like my hands would be in pain. It was really fun, and I had such a high, but like for me to play that loud for 2.5 hours was hard. So, I went in, I transcribed his book. His book was pretty good. And I kind of asked some more questions, like, do I have to play all this stuff like you? Do you play this, every night the same way? And, he was very thorough in his explanations. And yeah, so I had the recording, had the charts. I watched him many times. I think that's one thing that people do not do anymore because of conductor videos, and I don't know, also COVID now, but like I probably went and sat, I want to say like 7 or 8 times in the pit with him, because I really wanted to kill it and I wanted to be great, and I didn't want to get fired on the first one. And and luckily I did great. I remember getting designated very, very quickly, and just like feeling really good, but also still just nervous every single time that I did it. I would say that's one thing that stuck with me, is that even after subbing however many shows that I did, I was still nervous. The stomach pain and the stomach issues that I had. There's a famous story about me at Greece that I don't know if your listeners want to know.
Yes,
But
tell us.
so
Did you throw up on the drums?
no, worse.
Okay. Oh,
Um, I was just I did I think I so I was very I don't know. I had in my routine when I would sub, I would get a Subway sandwich before every time I subbed. Ironic, Subway sandwich, and I think, I would always be nervous. Sometimes I'd pop a Pepto or whatever before a show. This particular time, I was not feeling really good, and at Greece they were up on risers behind the stage, so you had to go up these two flights of stairs, and you were not visible, but you were kind of visible during some parts. And I had to hit the head in the middle of the show. So I was kind of timing when I could do it. And I think I found a good moment where I thought I might have a couple minutes. So I was like, excuse me, I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta go to the bathroom. And I ran, and everybody's kind of laughing at me, going, "Oh, what the fuck?" So I ran down to the bathroom, and I was, doing my business, and they had a speaker in the bathroom, so you could hear what was happening on stage, and all of a sudden the song started,
oh no.
and I was not back, and so I said, "Oh shit, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go back up." So I ran back up. I think I missed the verse of some song, but when I got back to my chair, I came in right in the chorus, and I got a very nice applause from the band when I
Wow.
sat down and rejoined the chorus of some song in Greece.
That's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of people remember that I still am friends with, so it worked out.
Well, there is a story about a colleague of mine who had a similar problem. I've had that problem too when you're on
Yeah,
stage and you have to use the restroom and it's like excruciatingly painful
yeah,
and you can't leave. But when it's like intermission, you run to the restroom and you just,
yeah,
relieve yourself. But
yeah.
there was a time where as one guitarist on a show that I was doing just said, fuck it, man. I'm just going to go right here. He went to the bathroom on stage.
No.
Yes. And we've joked with him ever since, and we, buy him Depends and stuff like that. But
Oh
he said he
my
felt the warm water running down his leg. I was like, oh man,
man.
but I couldn't do that. I,
No, not me.
wow, yeah, but the whole thing about subbing and being nervous, man.
Yeah,
Every time I subbed in the past, it was nerve wracking,
yeah,
which is just part of the. It comes with the territory subbing on a show, especially being a drummer.
yeah.
It's a high pressure gig, and
High pressure.
a lot of people are relying on you.
Yep,
So you subbed for Clancy,
yep,
and did you eventually move on to subbing at other shows?
yeah, yeah. There was like kind of a period. I mean, yeah. So I suffered Clancy. I did well, but like, there was all these guys who really didn't need anybody else when it came to other shows. I thought, oh, hey, I'm designated at Greece. It's gonna get me all these other subbing gigs. Um, and it wasn't until another recommendation from Jim Hirschman recommended me to, probably one of my favorite drummers, Broadway drummers, dudes in general, who I've learned, probably the most from, and that's Shannon Ford. Um, so I kind of became, I subbed for him at this off Broadway show called Everyday Rapture, which was really, really fun. And that's where I met Carmel Dean and also George Farmer and who else was there? That's a lot of great people came in and out of that pit. It was a really fun show. And from there, I started subbing on Next to Normal, which was an incredible show and an incredible band, and that's where I met the great music director Charlie Alterman. So yeah, through Clancy and through Shannon Ford is who I can attribute like subbing for. And then I don't know, you want to know the other ones I did? Okay. Then yeah, because I basically did a sub of a string of subbing, and then got very lucky and stopped. Let's see, I subbed for Howie Joins, great drummer and contractor at Ghost. Another one of my favorite guys and drummers who is not really in the business anymore is Trey Files. Did you remember him?
No.
So Trey was the drummer for Spring Awakening.
Oh, maybe that's where I'm thinking the guy from Blink 182.
No, that's shit, I don't know. But yes, no, Trey is an incredible dude, incredible drummer. He I think his first show was Spring Awakening, and then he did American Idiot, and that's where I subbed for him, the Green Day show.
That's where I remember him from. Okay.
So yeah, American Idiot was the third show I subbed on, and quite possibly my favorite show I've ever done.
Travis Barker was Blink 182.
Travis Barker, there you go.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, and then Trey Cool is the drummer for Green Day. Ironically,
that's what I'm thinking of. Trey Cool, yeah. So Trey Files. Wait, so Trey Cool is the drummer for
Green Day,
and Trey Files was the drummer on the
Broadway. Yeah,
that's right. Did they ever meet? Do you know?
They did many times. Yeah. Actually, Trey Cool came to the show a lot. I was definitely there a few times when I played, and that was pretty cool to meet him and get his support. It was very cool. But yeah, that show, American Idiot, was probably in ways the hardest show I've ever done, because it was 100 minutes of music that had to be memorized, no charts, and you play exact same thing every single time. And so and the whole show was clicked with lots of tempo changes and stuff, and I guess I'm a really good reader, and kind of I can it's definitely my strongest thing. Like, you can put anything in front of me and I'll read it, and I've been doing it since I was a kid. It's probably from piano playing and playing in tons of big bands, etc. But so to finally have to rely on memorizing something and learning it. There was no music also, so it was all listening. Yeah, so that was the other hard thing.
There were no charts?
No charts. No.
What? Really?
No charts. Apparently there was charts somewhere, but I it was going to take a while to find them, and they weren't really accurate. So it was and so Trey basically made videos of him playing every single song in the show. So if you really couldn't hear something, you could check it out and see how he was playing it, or how he was sticking these crazy licks. So I've never practiced more for anything in my life than learning American Idiot on Broadway.
Wow. There is I shouldn't say two schools of performing, I guess, but there are people that, like yourself, you put music in front of them and they're like, okay, I can read this down, probably never make a mistake. Put music in front of me without me, taking some time, I can get through it. But I'd need some time. But if you say, all right, play the entire Jackson's Live record from 1981, I can play the right. I can do that.
Killing.
Because I can remember things. That's
right.
I just grew up listening to, just probably like yourself. You probably grew up playing stuff too, but having that music in front of you is an added plus. Which is something I'm going to ask you now. Do you have the music in front of you at your show right now, and do you read it, or do you just have it there as a guide?
So, great question. I have not used the music for Moulin Rouge since the second week of the first run of it. And this is a very two funny stories about reading music and memorizing music. Moulin Rouge, I've been doing it for so long that it feels very ingrained in my body. Um, a lot of stuff was transcribed and put in the drum book, and then a lot of stuff wasn't, just because of time issues. And I realized that I could have a lot more fun um, playing without looking at music, right? So when we shut down and I was going to come back to doing something I hadn't done in a year and a half, I said, shit, I hope I remember this. I better look at the music. And so I get to the cast rehearsals. I'm looking at the music. It's all coming back to me. But there are like 2 or 3 spots in the show where I can't remember what the fuck I did. And so I had to go back to, my recording and listen to what I did. And after checking those spots out, I said, okay, I can go back to no music, which was very cool. It's just shows you like what your brain is capable of, even after a long period of time away, of not even thinking or doing that thing. Right. The other, that was pretty cool to me, but the predecessor and of the cool moment of this was after American Idiot had closed, the tour was going out, and my buddy Grant Braddock was doing it. He couldn't make a rehearsal, and Tom Kidd calls me up and says, "Can you do the rehearsal?" I said, "I haven't looked at this in 6 months. I have no idea if I can play it." And he was like, "Doesn't matter. Just come in. We just need somebody there." So after 6 months of not listening, thinking, doing it all, I remembered by memory 95% of it.
You played a lot of jazz.
Yeah.
Now you need to remember all that stuff. Do you have charts in front of you for your jazz gigs too?
Yes, because usually when I'm playing jazz, I'm playing other people's music, and I haven't internalized it like the way I have a Broadway show playing it every single night, or
Okay.
whatever. And the people's music is really difficult to odd time signatures, yada yada yada. People write crazy shit. So yeah, it's no. I'm reading all the time, pretty much. Yeah,
Now we're gonna get to your stuff later, but
no problem.
you created your stuff. Are you reading your own charts?
Yes.
Really?
On the big band, but not the quintet. Yeah. So
Fascinating.
yeah, so if you we can, I'll explain it later. It's all good.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
2010,
Yes.
Green Day, American Idiot,
Yeah.
Broadway subbing. Uh, did you eventually get your own show shortly after that?
So I continue to sub for maybe 3 more years. Um, I did a couple more shows for Shannon. I did a couple shows for Trey, a show for Howie. Maybe that's it. It's hard to remember. Um, and then came my call of my first show, which was Pippin, the revival of Pippin, and that was 2013.
That was your
Um,
first show? Wow, I didn't
that was
know
my
that.
first show. Yep.
Wow.
So that was I think we started at the very beginning of 2013 with cast rehearsals. Um, and I got that show because um, Charlie Alterman was the music director. I had done a bunch of shows with him. We had always gotten along really well. He liked my playing. And and then also my good buddy Sonny Palladino was on that show, and I know that he fought for me. I think that the contractor had got his guys he wanted to get, and luckily there was enough people who wanted me in the room, and that's how it started.
You did the cast recording for that. Tell me how you
Yes.
approached the cast recording. As your first cast recordings are different than a lot of things that we do as far as regular pop recordings or jazz recordings.
Yeah,
It's very intense. Uh, Tell me about your experience recording that show.
it was pretty intense. That show was not clicked, no click on that show. It was kind of a tempos were a bit moving, a lot of stuff pushed and pulled. There's definitely some groove tunes in that show, but it kind of depended on how music director and the cast were feeling, where it was going, and that was kind of the approach to the cast recording, and that didn't fly. So immediately we instituted clicks for the album, which something we hadn't done at all, but luckily the band was a really, really great band, incredible band. Some of my favorite people were in that band. So I remember that starting off very, very stressful for some people. And luckily we all worked together to get it to a doable place, and everyone played great. And the finished product is pretty amazing. I really liked that album. But that was an exceptionally stressful process. Yes, for that reason.
Did that lead you to your next one? You do The Color Purple after that?
No, after that I did It Should Have Been You. That flew right past you, right? That was it was a cute funny show, kind of like a play with music a little bit. Not really, I guess it's a musical. Some good songs in it, great cast, very short-lived. Basically after Pippin closed, the contractor moved half of the people to one show and then half the people to It Should Have Been You, which is very cool. So I was with my good buddy Steve Millhouse on bass at It Should Have Been You, and who played bass on Pippin, and Rick. No, who else was there? Rick Heckman, reed player, and then everybody else kind of went to that show Something Rotten. So both of them started right after Pippin, yeah, and they were contracted by John Miller, yeah.
What was the show about? I didn't even really.
It was about
know much about it.
It was about, Jesus, let's see if I can remember. No, it was about a wedding, and I think this shows you how much I remember it. I think there was sisters, and one of them was gay, and she came out gay, and the kind of other one was plumper and didn't have wasn't as beautiful, but she was gets her due in the end, and they get married. She gets married, I'm pretty sure. I hope I remember.
Did you ever see the show?
I did not see that one.
Do you have monitors in the pits that you play in to actually see the show?
Yeah, most all of them I have, not that one. Because most of the, I mean, that was a different one. That was more traditional Broadway. Like, I guess I've done a lot of well, that's not true. I guess I've done a few different Broadway runs, but usually rock ones, or pop shows, I guess. Yeah.
Going back to Pippin, did you go back to the original cast recording to listen to what the original drummer played, and did you try to emulate that?
No, yeah, yes and no. I mean, when I got the call to do it, they said it's going to be new orchestrations and a new modern vibe. So that was cool, but I had no idea what the music was like. So yeah, I listened to the cast recording, and I was like, wow, these are killing tunes. There was some, because like, I didn't grow up listening to musical theater, but I did play the shows at my high school, which was, they were always very, very, very good. But outside of like those, 6 shows that I did in high school, I never knew anything else. I couldn't tell you a difference between, Phantom of the Opera or Chicago or whatever. So yeah, I didn't know any of these shows when I would get called to do them or whatever. But I definitely always would. I love to check out the originals, whether that's Pippin or Color Purple. There's definitely a lot to learn from that, and yeah, pretty awesome. That Pippin is a great cast recording, but it's so loose. And if you listen to any old school cast recordings, they're just, the time is so loose on them. It's just a funny thing to listen to, and to be like, wow, you guys got away with this, nobody cared. But I guess it's fine.
Well, speaking of revivals, did you event that was The Color Purple the next thing that you did?
Yes.
Now
It was.
That's where I met you, because I
Yes.
called, and the thing about trying to network with people and trying to get a gig, some people get it through a recommendation, some people call or email or text or direct message. I just reached out to you, and thankfully you had a slot open, and
Yeah.
that's where I met you, and I subbed for you, and it was such a great book. And let me tell you something. Anyone listening here, Jared has one of the best snare drums on the planet Earth.
Oh, thanks.
Man, I love that snare drum. I was like, I hit it. I was like, oh my god, this sounds so good. Now
Oh,
tell me
thanks.
what snare that is against a pearl.
It's a pearl Kapoor, which is like mahogany, and they don't make it anymore. And fun fact, I've used it on every single Broadway show I've done.
Really?
Yes, I have.
Wow, it's such a nice snare drum.
Thank you.
But I was very happy to be able to try to emulate your sound and try to sound
Oh,
like you,
thanks.
which is very difficult to do. But I think
No,
I did
you
all
did.
right.
You did great.
But the band that I
Only the
was
highest
playing with
praise.
was great there, and
Yeah.
the thing about that show, you're doing a revival, but it was different because you had some different songs in there, right? I think.
I'm not sure if we had different songs, but the arrangements were so different and the band was so stripped down.
Yes,
You know, it
that's
went from
true.
like 25-piece orchestra to 8 people.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was, I think, the biggest difference from the original. Yeah, maybe a different song or two. That seems right. Yeah, you would know better than me, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, it was cool.
Again, did you listen to the original cast
Yeah,
recording?
yeah. Again, I just wanted to know what I was getting into, and it was great. I actually think the first thing I saw though that piqued my interest was a really early promo video with Cynthia Erivo and Jennifer Hudson singing one of the tunes, and this was like way early, like maybe before it was contracted, and this, maybe it was like 6 months out, and I actually, I mean, to be quite honest, I saw that video and I was like, man, I should play the show. Like I really wanted to play this show. And I've never really thought that or seen a show and been like, man, I want to do this. Um, and yeah, the way it came about is pretty cool if you
Yeah.
want to know that story.
Yeah. Tell me
Yeah.
how'd you get that gig?
Um, so I had worked with Jason Michael Webb, who you know very well. Um, he's definitely one of my favorite dudes, one of my favorite music directors, one of my favorite pianists, one of my favorite people around. Um, and oddly enough, we had met in 2000, I don't know, 11 or something, when 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 both of us were relative, nobodies, and we were extras in an episode of Smash.
Yeah, I did that too. That's so
You did it
funny.
too. I remember yours. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
See, we have the
You might have
same.
been in one with George too, right?
N-
Were you in an episode
No,
with George? Okay.
I forgot who was on that one, but yeah, a
Okay.
lot of people were working on that show during that time, which is
Exactly.
fascinating.
Exactly. Um, anyway, so fast forward many years, and I did a workshop with Jason for a show called Witness Uganda, which is a great show and a great score, great dudes, everything about it I love. Um, and Jason and I were both contracted and going to do the off-Broadway run at Second Stage. Um, and Jason was offered Color Purple, I think because Joseph Joubert was orchestrating it and, didn't have the bandwidth or didn't want to conduct, music direct. So, Jason is one um, of Joseph's proteges, and Jason said, I want to get Jared, and that's then, and so basically I had to bail on the same show as Jason. And that was I hate bailing on things to do something else. Um, and it was a very tough decision because I didn't, word means a lot. Your word means a lot, and your bond means a lot. So one of the also the kind of regrets in my life is early on, I used to bail on a lot of stuff, to do something else that I want to do, whether it's for more money or whatever. But you don't, when you're younger, you don't realize what kind of bridges you may be burning. that's my advice for people in general. But yeah, now I try to never do that, even if I'm gonna lose money or whatever. It's just like, if you say yes to something, try your hardest to do it, because you said yes and people are counting on you. But anyway, I do think that in the end I made a very good decision, because that was probably, my favorite show that I've ever done, for a lot of reasons. You were there. So
Well, I just remember being in the pit, and before every show, Danielle Brooks would come
yeah,
in and would just lighten up the mood by saying something hilarious and just crack everybody up.
yeah,
And it would just make it so much fun.
yeah.
But then I'd have to
I'm
come
getting
straight.
goosebumps right now, man. Serious, thinking about it.
And then, when Cynthia Erivo would sing her song at the, oh
Yeah,
my God. I was like,
yeah,
oh my, sometimes I'd like almost lose track because I'd be listening to how
yeah,
great she was.
yeah,
There was
yeah,
one time though when Jennifer Hudson was in it, and I was backstage, and this little area where we hang out
yeah.
back there, and she was just sitting in the chair, and I walked by, and I think I introduced myself, and she's like, "Hi, my name is Jennifer." It's like, I know who the hell you are. I should have been like, Jennifer who? Well,
Jennifer who?
what are you doing here? But no,
That's silly.
she's no joke too, man.
No, she was amazing.
But everybody was very, very cool, was laid back, except for, I'm going to tell a little story here.
Yeah,
I am not a percussionist. When I was in high school, I was in the concert band, and I just remember being in the back, and, there's drummers and somebody who play percussion, but we would act up in the back, and the band director was like, could you drummers please quiet down?
yeah,
And a
always.
friend of mine was like, excuse me, we're not drummers, we're percussionists. It's like, what? Anyway, I'm not a percussionist, but there was a mallet part in your show, and I was freaking
Yeah,
out
it was
because it was
hard, right?
only 5 notes, right?
Notes, yeah, yeah.
5 notes, and I had to play it and put down a stick and then
It
pick
was
the thing up. And I
oh,
was like, oh
so
fuck, how am I gonna do this? So I just had to memorize it because
yeah,
again, I'm not a percussionist, but can I admit that there were times where I'd hit one wrong
of
note.
course, of course. Hey, I did it too. But it made us that extra percent every show. So
Exactly, I know. Well, yeah, for people that don't know, also, when you're little tip, if you have a show, which I tried to do at Ain't Too Proud,
yeah,
you have a show and you want to make some extra money, you try to add instruments to your setup that will get you doubles so that you can make extra money. If you have an instrument that is not part of a typical drum set, which is the drums, cymbals, probably I think triangle might be a part of it,
yeah,
and maybe
yeah,
tambourine. But if you have a mallet instrument that you have to play, that's an extra, I think, 12.5%. And if you have electronics, that's an extra 25%. So I had
right.
this part when we were doing the run in Berkeley, where there was two gavels in the show, and people were like, maybe somebody can. During the rehearsals, the director said, "Can we get a gavel here?" I was like, I can do it. I can do it. All
Yeah,
we need is a rolling pad.
yeah, exactly.
They're like, "Okay, go ahead and get it." $700 later, the next day, there's a pad there, and the thing is there. I'm like, "Yeah, man, crack." I do it twice. I'm like, that's 25%. I can't wait to get to Broadway. I'm going to be rich. So when we got to the point where we're going to go to Broadway, we got to Broadway, and the company manager, saw the pad there, and he was like looking at it like this. He's like, Clayton, sorry, but we're gonna have to take this away and put this on key 3. I was like,
Oh man.
dude,
Oh
you're, you're
man.
taking away my kid's future right here.
I know.
I can't afford their college now. But yeah, there are things that you can do to make yourself a little bit more
That's messed up.
valuable. But I lived, and
Yeah.
in any event,
That is a good story.
uh, Color Purple. You went to another show after that, War Paint.
More paint, correct.
So there was, I didn't see that. I've heard that there were big, gigantic horses, and I didn't know. I don't know
No,
the
that's
whole
a different
story.
one. That's
What's that?
Warhorse. That's
War
Warhorse.
Horse. Wait a minute. What's War Paint?
It's about makeup.
Oh, damn. I'm all wrong. So is there a show called War Horse?
Yeah,
What? Did you do
yeah.
both of those?
No, no, no. Warhorse was it was a play at Lincoln Center with like I guess
The Trojan horse?
animatronic. It was like horse. Yeah, horses were in it. Apparently, it was very good. I never saw it. I would have liked to. It was really good though.
All right. Well, I'm wrong. So
People,
War
but you're not the first to confuse the
confuse
War
those.
Paint as Warhorse. Yeah,
Were they running at the same time?
I think so. Maybe I
Damn.
don't know.
Like this isn't what we signed up for.
I know.
So War Paint. Tell me about that. Patty
War
LuPone.
Paint. Patty LuPone, Christine Abersol, two fantastic actresses who played like the titans of the makeup industry in the early 1900s and kind of the trajectory of their lives. See, I remember this one really well. Um, and actually, there was a lot of wonderful stuff about this one. I really enjoyed playing. It was super hard. It was one of those like real combined drum set percussion books with like real timpani and I had two timp on that show, and I had an electronic mallet cat.
Wow. So there you go.
So
See,
I made some money.
you got paid.
But I was in the pit and I had very minimal space, so like I had to have my buddy come in and like say, hey man, how could I get this mallet cat in here? And basically we mounted it against the pit, and it was like like I was playing like this, and then the mallet cat was up here. So I had to kind of get out of my chair every time. I had bad back pain from the show, actually. I had to get out of my chair to play it a lot, and then the foot pedals were in my like left foot. It was difficult. It was a hard one. I had a really hard time getting subs on that one because it was like a lot of very swinging big band drumming, and then like very classical percussionist stuff. But yeah, that was also a really great band. Some of my favorite musicians were in that band. Big band, great conductor. One of my favorite dudes, Larry Yerman. The music is beautiful. Amazing writer Scott Frankel, who wrote Grey Gardens. It was and great director Michael Greif. It was cool. It was fun. Yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff about that.
Didn't he do Rent?
Yeah, Michael Greif directed Rent and directed Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh wow.
Big Dog. Yeah.
Did that run its course, and that's how you got the prom, or did you leave to do?
No, I've only ever left one show to do another, and that was prom to do Moulin Rouge. But War Paint closed, and I already had prom lined up, which was cool. And I was also doing Moulin Rouge workshops during War Paint. I kind of had a nice period of time where I had like 5 years of my Broadway life booked in a weird way. Maybe not 5, but 3 or 4. Like I did. Yeah, after War Paint closed, I did maybe a workshop of prom, and then I did the out of town of Moulin Rouge in Boston, which is the first time I've ever gone out of town to do a run. And I think when that ended, I came back and did the prom, which was a great show. Very, very special people. Small band, but really fun, unorthodox setup. I was in a booth by myself in the basement next to the bass player and the guitar player. The keyboard player was in an office, and then 4 people were in the pit with a music director. So many remote locations that somehow came together and sounded really good. And that was a really fun show to play, and I loved it. Great music. But I had already, so I left that one with probably a few months left in its run to do Moulin Rouge, which was waiting for a specific theater to open at. And when Kinky Boots finally announced its closing at the Hirschfeld, then then Moulin Rouge announced it would be going in there in the summer of 2019.
For people that don't know about where drummers are generally situated in theater nowadays, musicians used to be in a pit, but now they can be pretty much anywhere. Now, you were talking about your situation at the prom where people were in different places. When I went to go see Sammy Marandino play Kinky Boots, he was
Right.
in a completely different room. Now, at Moulin Rouge, are you in a very similar situation? You're like in a whole other floor?
No, they changed it up for Moulin Rouge when we got there. They basically uh, they built us kind of a world-class recording studio in the basement, and so there's two locations. Well, three if you include the conductor, but there's one giant, not giant, one medium-sized room that houses key to both guitars and bass on one side. Oh, somebody's calling me. Sorry, hold on one sec. Decline. Okay. So it houses rhythm section on the one side and then the strings on another side with string quartet. And then I'm kind of in the middle in my own ISO booth, which is really cool. So I can see the keyboard player, I can see the bass player, and I can see the guitar player. And if I lean my head, I can see the other guitar player. And then the way the show started off, they had the horn players, which are trumpet, French horn, trombone, and reeds on the fourth floor by themselves, very far away, long walk up the stairs. And when we came back, due to space issues for new cast members, they moved them downstairs into another room, which used to be someone's office. So now they're close to us, but still not in the same room. Yeah.
You mentioned something, about another show that you were on. Can't remember what you just said it, but you had to stand up and play the mallet cat.
Yeah, on Warpaint.
And it led to some issues with your body.
Yeah.
What are some, it's I think about it because my right arm is starting to hurt, and if I had more time, which I'm going to have to dedicate to doing it because I don't want to have long-term consequences to it, but my right arm is starting to hurt, in my forearm because of something I'm doing wrong in the pit.
Yeah.
How do you avoid injuries doing Broadway shows, playing the same thing the same way? Or, you tried not to play as hard as John Clancy at your first show because you didn't want to hurt yourself. What do you do to avoid injuries?
I mean, I take care of my body pretty darn well. I'm an avid exerciser, and but also being a diabetic brings on a bunch of other problems. And throughout my career, I was virtually injury free until actually Color Purple, when I had really bad carpal tunnel in my left hand and wrist, coupled with some neuropathy in my fingers. And it was basically due to poor blood sugar management. So I'm dealing with the repetitive injury thing, that we are all dealing with, and then another subset of problems from being diabetic. And I kind of changed my eating habits and my life around a lot during that show, and virtually those specific problems went away. I got to a point in my life where I realized I needed to have a dedicated warm-up time. I had always been pretty nonchalant about warming up before playing. And I think maybe when I was turned 30 or something, I was like, this ain't flying anymore, So, I think that obviously warming up and spending a good deal of time, whether it's, 10, 15, 20 minutes warming up the hands and the arms and the wrists, is very helpful to stay injury free. I think that it's hard to figure out sometimes like the problems of our setups until we've done it for a while. like your problem or my problem at Warpaint. Like I thought I would be cool, and then I realized, man, I shouldn't have set it up like this, but I had no other choice. And like have you figured out what you're doing wrong?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So like that's the thing. It's like how do we figure that out? Because I mean, there are professionals who will be able to tell us that, but yeah, I couldn't tell you, and I couldn't at the time realize that just standing up a tiny bit, to play this Malakat was going to like give me issues. So I think we just kind of need to um, stick to our most comfortable. Like, yeah, just maybe a good answer would be to just we know our footprint of the way our drums, because I'm thinking like maybe your drums are tighter than you usually are, or like you're not getting your rotation or something, like that's just what comes to my mind. Like it's probably something with your setup, because if you've never had these issues before, it's probably just the way the drums are set up or the way the space they stuck you in. I think that maybe sticking up for our space, of what we need to be comfortable is really important, so that these kind of issues don't creep up on us. Like I mean, a good point is like when I first set up my drums for Moulin Rouge, I had them angled way different because I wanted to look right at the bass player, and like be able to vibe with him. And something about like the way the stool was laying on the ground was so uncomfortable. So after doing 8-10 days of rehearsal, I said I need to switch it completely. And the sound people were very cool about it, and I just had to spend a good couple hours reorienting myself, and I'm not sure if that's a word, but just moving myself over, and because I could foresee having lots of issues had I would have kept it that way. I know it was uncomfortable the very first time I sat down and played the drum, and I said this can't be right, but I want it faced this way. And so yeah, now my back is flat against the wall, which it wasn't before. It was kind of at an angle. So yeah, I think trusting your setup and knowing what kind of space you need is important.
I remember seeing you a couple of weeks ago at outside before the show at Moulin Rouge, and you were outside
I was
practicing or
warming up.
warming up.
Yeah,
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 which is important. And
yeah,
I realized I probably need to do that more,
yeah,
and uh, and just make sure that I don't permanently damage my forearms, because that's
yeah,
part of our.
yeah. You need it.
Yeah. So Moulin Rouge is your latest gig, and I don't think you told me how you landed that one. Was it? Is it? Uh,
Oh, that's the first story from Justin Levine when he called me up. I think
oh yes, yes, you did
through
tell me about that.
yeah, through Carmel. I think she was originally the music director and then dropped out after a while, early on.
And um, since you've been doing so many different shows over the years, and you could talk to someone who's never done this before, what are things that a drummer should never do in a Broadway pit?
um, it's a very interesting question, because I can think of a lot of things I would tell not things people not to do that I do. um, um, well, don't here's a very simple one. Um, when you're playing drums in a Broadway pit, don't play what you feel. Play what's appropriate, which can mean a lot of things. But you're not, I mean, someone might not understand how specific the same stuff we play is, on a night to night basis, And I think until you've seen someone play the same thing twice, you'll never really know, because if you're in the audience, seeing a show, you might think, oh, that drummer's making up everything he's playing, you know. But as subs, as you and I have gone through, we've really learned the the kind of, I wouldn't say robotic, but the essence of playing the same thing 8 times a week, and the things you can do slightly different if allowed by your music director, or if not allowed by your music director. I think every show is a little bit different. There are spots in my current show where I play a different fill every night, but 95% of the show is the same thing every night. But I have a few spots where I'm able to play something a little bit different. And I think that, coming from a jazz background, the idea of spontaneous interplay and connectivity and improvisation, it's a different world. It's not Broadway. So those are two sides of my brain that have to be separate. Sometimes they can overlap a tiny bit, but for the most part, they are very separate.
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in playing drums for a Broadway show, doing what we do for a living?
Yeah. I mean, my advice would be to get out into the world, play lots of music, learn lots and lots of recordings, go see lots and lots of music. Nothing to do with Broadway. Go listen to.
Now, why is that? Why do you say that?
I say that because 99% of the time, whatever you hear in Broadway music came from something else. And I think the big problem with a lot of today's youth is they want to skip their musical education and go right to playing for Broadway shows. And I've talked to a number of people who have referenced grooves, saying, "Oh, that's from that show." And I said, "No, that's from Sly and the Family Stone." And they go, "What? What's that?" This is a real thing. I mean, it sounds silly, and but like, I think a lot of kids, young adults coming out of high school, college, want to go right to the top and this is, I'm not the only one who thinks this, and this is not an original thought whatsoever. I've heard this from a lot of my Broadway drumming heroes who, have played tons of music in their life and didn't start on Broadway. There's so many funny things that the older generation has to say about Broadway. It used to be the last thing people wanted to do in town, and it's the last stop on your train, and why start at the end? So but when now that I'm older and experienced and done a lot of stuff in my life, different areas of music and Broadway, like, I can see this generation really wanting to just bypass all their musical education and go right to this. So and then somebody might respond with, "Well, I need to make a living," and I'll say, "Well,
you can get a job at the Apple Store.
Get a job." Exactly. Get a job. because if you don't know, you need to know where stuff comes from. You can't do calculus without knowing basic arithmetic. It's like, everybody's got to know the history. I mean, you don't have to deeply know the history of every single aspect of music, but you should know where stuff comes from when you hear like a groove in Rent, or just like, or like, someone's idea of jazz shouldn't be a Broadway show. It should be at least Miles Davis, and if not that, then go back to early jazz, and tell me some early jazz drummers, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, I heard that groove and yada yada yada." So that's my perhaps slightly salty opinion, but
no, you're not the only one.
Yeah,
a lot of the people on this podcast said the same exact thing.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad. If enough people say it, then maybe some people will listen to it.
Yeah, even going back to where you started, Greece, if you don't know where that kind of music came from, you won't sound authentic when you're playing it.
Yeah.
And you can, at least I can tell when somebody hasn't listened to the source material. When people
Yeah,
have come in or tried to play Ain't Too Proud, whether they send me a video or come in and
right.
try to sub, I can immediately tell that they've just been listening to the cast recording and don't even probably remember the grooves that the Temptations actually did back in the
Right.
day.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
important to go back. Uh, you are promoting your new album. It is called Two Takes. It's volume 1 and 2, correct?
Correct.
And tell me more about you've done so many recordings. I was just looking at a, a on your website. You have like I guess not every
Yeah.
thing that you've done, but there's so many recordings
Pretty
that you've
close.
done.
Thanks.
You've done this latest one, and was this the one that you were nominated for a Grammy for, or is this
Yeah, no, I was in consideration for a Grammy Award for these. I didn't end up getting one. Long story. And I'm not salty, it's fine. But these
but you've
yeah, a
won a
little bit.
Grammy before though, right?
Yeah, for the Color Purple cast recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And then, I've been on I think 3 other Grammy nominated recordings. So
So tell me more about this project that you're working on.
yeah, this so for my creative, jazz output life, I had a co-led trio called the We Trio with a vibes player and a bass player that had a long, fruitful musical life. Eventually, it came to an end. A number of people were like, "You should do your own recording. You should make some music of your own. You have great tunes. Do it up." So I said, "Okay, let's do it." And in the process, I came up with this crazy idea to take these 8 original compositions of mine and commission 8 different big band composers to do arrangements on them. So my project, Two Takes Volume 1, is the quintet recording of my music, which is, my arrangements for a small group, piano, bass, drums, trumpet, and alto. And then the Volume 2 is a big band recording of the same 8 tunes, each completely reimagined by a different composer arranger. And they fulfilled my wildest dreams. I couldn't be more proud of, I don't know, any musical thing I've done in my life. I'm very it was very kind of just a crazy idea, very very nuts, and I somehow pulled it off. Right before the pandemic, most of it, and then finished the rest during the pandemic. And then they came out in September of this last year, and they've gotten, incredible press. I was able to do some traveling early on and play this music with a few different college bands, and I'm going out at the end of this month to do it again at a big jazz festival in Florida, play my music with Jacksonville University in North Florida. But yeah, I don't know, there's like 50 people involved on these 2 records. It's nuts.
Wow.
I had two big bands play, basically. I just wanted to get a whole bunch of different people involved. And I've been in a lot of people's big bands, and I want to, pay it back and reciprocate that. So
Well, did you employ Michael Davis?
of course I did. Of course.
Man, I met him. He was in the band of Memphis, and
Yep.
that's a funny dude, man. And great trombonist, great educator. Yes. He's got so much going on, and
yes,
hey, you played on his record too, right?
I did. He is one of my true favorites in life, in both music and man.
Yeah. So. And he's in Moulin Rouge too.
He is. Yeah, it's the 3rd show we've done together. I met him doing Pippin. And we immediately became really, really good buddies, because we both went to Eastman, and our birthdays are a day apart. And I used to listen to his record with my trombone playing roommate at Eastman.
Oh, wow.
Cool. Yeah.
Wow. Small world. You're going to be the 8-bit big band is going to be at Sony Hall on March 20th.
Yes.
and at the Howard Theater in Washington, D.C. on March 25th.
Yes.
Get your tickets now. And before we wrap up, I have a couple other questions. What kind of gear
Sure.
do you use, and why?
I use I guess I'm endorsed with Paiste cymbals, which I love and have been with since 2012. So almost 10 years. Um, I They treat me really well. I think they make great stuff for both jazz and pop theater, and that's kind of what I was looking for early on. And one of the other big things is consistency in product with them. Like you can get the same cymbal and it'll sound the exact same. So if you break a cymbal and you need the exact same sound, it's great. Not everybody's looking for that, but I am actually, which is cool. I use Vic Firth sticks. I've been using them my whole entire life. Been an endorser since mid 2000s. Favorite sticks. Grew up playing them. What else is to say? The cases I endorse are Protection Racket. Really good company out of England. Great cases. Love them. What else? I play Gretsch drums. I kind of am and an unofficial endorser with Gretsch drums. But at my show, I play Pearl drums. And both are great for a number of reasons. I've yet to find the perfect drum company that I can get everything I need, which is, a great sounding jazz kit and a great sounding pop big kit. Either one of those would do the trick, I think. What else? Play Remo heads for sure. And what else do I like? That's about it. Oh, yeah.
Where can people find you on social media?
I have a website, jaredschonig.com. I am on the Instagram. I believe I'm at jschonig. I stay up to date on that. I have a Facebook page, an artist page on there. I don't really do the Twitter, although I'd like to, I guess. No.
It's a cesspool out there, man.
Oh, no. And then I have a YouTube page too with a lot of good videos on it.
Is that from just examples of things is it your like your recordings or your drumming?
Yeah.
Or both?
Yeah, both recordings, drumming, live videos from over the years, and a bunch of videos from the 2 new records that I just did. Some Moulin Rouge stuff. There's a cool side-by-side cam I did of me playing the Good Morning America Moulin Rouge medley. Kind of the drum cam of that, and side-by-side with the footage on TV. It's cool. Yeah.
Very, very cool. You all need to check out this record, 2 takes. Song Sabotage. I was just listening to it before we got on this call, and it's fantastic. Check out Moulin Rouge. It's a very, very cool show. And if you're in any of the areas that he's going to be performing, definitely check him out live in Florida on January 31st, March 20th at Sony Hall, March 25th at the Howard Theater, and July 1st at Madison Square Garden. I'm just kidding. Sold out. I'm just kidding. I mean, hey, one day, man.
One day. I'll cross it off.
Best thing, man. You like the Jared Schonig Big Band. Sold
out.
At
Madison Square. All right, you heard it here first.
Yes, you'll take it. Thank you for being a part of this. Nice talking to you.
Thank you. Great talking to you. I appreciate it.
And good luck with everything in the future. And we will talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.